Some of the items you'll need to perform your adjustment are a decent screwdriver. I was looking through my toolkit, and some of these screwdrivers just aren't up to par. When you insert them into the slots, they have a lot of free play, and I have in the past overdone it with a ill-fitting screwdriver, and you end up marring the finish, as that's one thing you don't want to do with your bike. So what I ended up doing is finding one of these kits that I have, and it's just one of these assortments of various bits, and I actually found the 8mm flat bit has a really good surface area on it. It slopes so that when you insert it into the adjuster, it actually fills in the gap and puts a tight seal on it, and you'll see that in action shortly. Another thing you're going to want is a 19mm socket. Try and get a 6-point if possible. They do have some kits have like a 16 point socket, and you'll find that it only grabs right on the very edges, and if you run into any resistance, you can actually put a mark on the adjusting nut, which you don't really want to do. Another handy tip is I just use a cheap piece of plastic. Nothing fancy, even saran wrap might work, but this is a little bit tougher. And when I go to make the adjustments, I'll put this over the nut and put the socket on top of it, and this just acts as a barrier to stop any scratching, because the finish is like a on the adjusters, or it's like a matte finish, and as soon as you start torquing them and working them, they'll start to shine up. So I kind of like keeping that matte finish. It's not necessary, but it's just what I like to do. Another thing you're going to need is one of these adjusting, I don't know, spanners, I guess you call them, for the rear shock. If you're lucky enough to have the, I believe it's 2014 on, they have the remote adjuster, which you just screw in and screw out for your preload, and fantastic. I wish my bike had it. I might upgrade eventually to get that. But in the meantime, these work adequately. I actually, the spring is very, very stiff, so I actually have 3 of them. But in another bike I had, my R6, I bought 2 of them, taped them together, and ground them to match, because I was having some trouble adjusting it. So I ground them to fit the bike, and this actually works really well with the Ninja. So I'll show you how to use these later. And last thing is a flashlight. You don't necessarily need a flashlight if you're outside, but if you're inside, you may find that handy as well. First adjustment we're going to talk about is the rebound damping forced adjustment. Standard setting is 2 turns out from the fully clockwise position. The original owner of this bike had it set at 2.5. The fewer turnouts makes it stiffer, so it's kind of like a valve that you're opening. So the valve, the tighter the valve is, the less fluid flow you'll get. So less fluid flow would make it stiffer. So if you notice on this, there's actually a circlet, or what's that word? A punch. They indexed it with a punch mark. So we're gonna take this, and I'll show you. There's that screwdriver I was telling you about with that nice tip, and if you insert it, it really does take up a lot of the gap. I'll just move this over here so you can get a better view of it. There you go. So you'll see the gap there, and this really does fill it up quite well so that there's very little free play, and so you won't mar that delicate surface, because this is just aluminum, and if you as you work it, it will deform. So put your screwdriver in there and turn it fully clockwise. It's not very difficult. So there's 2 turns. You'll see how the index marks lined up at the 2-turn mark. So we will back it out. The standard is 2 turns. The original owner had it at 2.5, so it was a little softer than stock. 2 is the stock that they recommend. So we'll go, there's half, 1, half, 2. So now that's 2 turns out from fully clockwise. When you fully clockwise it, you'll feel it stop, and then you just back it out 2 turns. And then you do the same for the other side as well. Next adjustment is a spring preload. Spring preload is basically the weight of your motorcycle. You plus the weight of your motorcycle dictates the weight of the adjustment required for the spring preload. The spring preload, say if you have a lot of equipment on your bike, your suspension is going to compress, and the preload is a way of putting your bike back to the original geometry so that you're not bottoming out the suspension. So here's that piece of plastic I was telling you about, and the spring preload is done through this nut, this 19mm nut that sits above the anodized shock top nut. There's a nut there that pulls that the top piece off your fork, but just sitting above it is this aluminum 19mm nut. So what you're basically going to do is, because you may not know what your stock setting is, what you're going to do is use this, slide that over like that, and there you go. And what you're going to do is you're going to, what I basically do, because you can't tell where that nut is, so what I do is I take a mark, say the 19mm, and once I got that on there, I'll just put my finger there to represent the index mark, and then you want to go clockwise, counterclockwise. So you go counterclockwise all the way. So there's 1 turn, 2 turns, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's 7. 7's right there. So 5 is actually the standard preload. So they don't really describe basically they say the spring preload can be left soft for average riding, but it should be adjusted harder for high-speed riding or riding with a passenger. The spring feels too soft or too stiff, adjust it in accordance to the table, and there's a table I'll show you as well. And I liked it set a little stiffer, usually generally stiffer than what the stock standard is, and the standard is 5 turns in. So right now all the preloads let go, and we're going to put 7 turns in. Now it was 7 turns out, just wanted to show you that that's what it was. and how to find your 0 point. So now we'll start spinning in 7 rotations or 7 circles. One, be careful of your tank, because that's one thing you probably heard that tank, that was my ratchet hitting my tank, so I should put another extension on this to get it out of the way. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I could stop there if I wanted the standard preload. You could take it for a spin on standard and see if you like it, but I always like to dial a little bit extra preload in it just to stiffen it up a little bit more. 6, hit my gas tank again, and 7. So that's 7, and as you can see, all that working is kind of mangled this piece of plastic up, but that it did its job. You can still see that the surface areas where it was meeting the aluminum nut was being crushed and worked on with the plastic, and I can attest that there's no damage to any of the plastics that's sitting there. So make sure that when you do these adjustments that you're doing equally on left side and right side to keep the shock balanced. That's what they recommend in the manual, and it makes common sense. You're down at the bottom fork. This is the bottom right hand side. You'll see this adjuster right there, and once again it has the index stamps in there to tell you where the 0 mark is, and this is for the compression damping, and basically when you hit the brakes and your nose is going in for a dive, that dive speed is your compression. The standard adjustment for this is 1 3/4 turns out from the fully clockwise position. So we'll use our screwdriver once again, and we'll go in there and we'll just turn it all the way in. There it is. And surprisingly, the index marks don't line up. So there's the one index mark there stamped in, and then this pin is actually off 1/4 of a turn. So I'm going to spin it out. Basically, the less you spin it out, say if the standard is 1 3/4 turn, if you use one turn, you're going to have a harder compression. It's going to feel harsher. It's going to be more stiff. So the standard's 1 3/4, and I'm going to make it 1 1/4, as I like mine a little stiffer than normal. So it's already at 1/4. Sorry, it's fully seated. So there's 1/4, which will line up the pins, and then I want to put one more turn into it. There's 1/2, and there's 1. So now that's 1 1/4 turns, and I'll take that for a spin, and I'll give it my evaluation as to whether or not it's enough, if it's too spongy or too stiff, or maybe it's just right, and it's fairly easy to adjust even on the fly. One thing I did notice is that this is a 2011 Ninja 1000, and it only has one adjuster. Other models like the Z1000 have one on each side, which is kind of unusual. I'll show you on the other side, but normally it would be right here according to the other side, and there's nothing here. So just to say that if you don't find one on the other side, don't be surprised. Okay, we're at the rear shock now, and this is, you see the adjustment point right there, nice and accessible. I like that. And it's got an H for hard and S for soft, and arrows. So if you go clockwise, it gets harder. Counterclockwise, it gets softer. Same thing as the rebound damp adjuster on the front fork. It's like a little valve, and if you push it all the way in, it gets stiffer. Or sorry, spin it all the way in, it gets stiffer. So we're gonna, unfortunately, this one doesn't have the indicating marks on it, so you're just going to have to go by what your screwdriver has, indicating mark on your screwdriver. So I'm just going to go by the label there. So we're going to spin it in. This one's a little bit stiffer. So there's one turn, two turns. So I got about 2 1/8 turn in to fully seat. So it's fully seated now. And basically you want 1 3/4 to 2 turns out, and start from there, and that's your rebound adjustment. So we're just going to do that. 1 and 2. I'm going to do 2 and I'll leave it at 2, and we'll give her a ride from there. So that rebound adjustment is when you're riding and your shock compresses, and then it's going to want to uncompress. Now if it uncompresses too quickly, what you're going to have is a lot of bounce. If you're on a rough road, it'll start bouncing up and down, and so the rebound will stop that return bounce. There's a lot of videos out there discussing the science behind it, and there's a lot of shops out there dedicated to tuning suspension based on your riding profile and your riding skill levels, all that sort of stuff. So just stick with the factory. If you find that you're losing your back end, even when you're going around a corner really fast, it may need to be stiffened up a bit. Lastly is the preload, the rear suspension preload. On some models you'll see dual split rings, and you'll need 2 of these to unlock them, 2 of these spanners to unlock them, and then you'll adjust one of the spanners and then you'll lock them together again so that they don't move. This one has, it's pretty typical, it's pretty old school. This has got a tang on there, and it's got these little ramps, jagged little ramps, and as you spin this big collar, it will push against the spring and land on a ramp, and as you turn it clockwise, it'll push the spring this direction, basically compressing it. And in compressing it, it will not only raise the motorcycle, but also if you have a load, say if you're carrying like 60 or 80 pounds of equipment in your bags, or if you have a passenger on, you'll want to increase that amount so that your bike doesn't sag when you hit a big bump and possibly even bottom out. These are fairly easy to do, and actually softening it is a lot easier. Basically you take your spanner, slide it underneath until you find that it hooks into one of the notches, and then it takes a lot of leverage, so you can actually sit there and there. So that just moved it up a notch. So I originally got it, it was on the maximum setting, or sorry, the softest setting, and I found that the softest setting was definitely way too spongy. It would bottom the suspension every time I hit a, even a moderate, like railway tracks or anything like that. So currently right now I got 1, 2, 3, I'm on my 4th notch, and I'm going to take that out. Looks like there's probably around 15 notches on there, 12 or 15 notches, so there's lots of room to go. So I'm going to give this a try, because it was definitely too soft the way it was. And that should be about it. Those are the only adjustments to the suspension that there are. And you can go on some forums, and some people will tell you what their base suspension settings are, and you can also go on YouTube and find some pros and what they recommend, depending on the type of riding that you do. So I hope this is helpful, and if you have any questions or any further information, just give me a shout in the comments, and I'll try and get back to you. Thanks.